That is a ridiculous question, and I
Yes
will not
or no?
No.
I
I'm
will.
sorry, Mr.
I will
Chairman,
take
but
that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Right out of the gate, you can see exactly where this is going. This is not a serious inquiry. This is a pre-planned theatrical hit job plane. And simple, what we are watching is a seasoned diplomat, a man who has served this country for decades under multiple presidents, being set up for a public smear by Ilhan Omar, a congresswoman, who appears more interested in creating viral moments than in actual governance. This kind of behavior represents everything that is wrong with political discourse today. It is not about finding truth. It is about shaming and silencing opponents. It is not about policy. It is about performance. We are going to watch the full exchange and then break down exactly why this type of political grandstanding is so unprofessional and frankly dangerous for the country. If you are tired of seeing these political games, do me a favor, hit the like button and make sure you are subscribed for more honest analysis.
Mr. Adams, in 1991, you pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress regarding your involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, for which you were later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question.
On February,
that was not a question. That was I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a
This
question.
committee can attack
On February
a witness
8th,
who is not permitted to reply.
that was not a question. Thank you for your participation. On February 8th, 1982, you testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about U.S. policy in El Salvador. In that hearing, you dismissed as communist propaganda report about the massacre of El Mozote, in which more than 800 civilians, including children as young as 2 years old, were brutally murdered by U.S.-trained troops. During that massacre, some of those troops bragged about raping a 12-year-old girl before they killed them. Girls before they killed them. You later said that the U.S. policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. Yes or no, do you still think so?
From the day that President Duarte was elected in a free election to this day, El Salvador has been a democracy. That's a fabulous achievement.
Yes or no, do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement that happened under our watch?
That is a ridiculous question, and I
yes or no?
No.
I will.
Sorry, Mr.
I will
Chairman,
take that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Yes or no? Would you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity, or genocide, if you believe they were serving U.S. interest, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Whether you, under your watch, a genocide will take place, and you will look the other way because American interests were being upheld, is a fair question. Because the American people want to know that anytime we engage a country, that we think about what our actions could be and how we believe our values are being furthered. That is my question. Will you make sure that human rights are not violated and that we uphold international and human rights?
I suppose there is a question in there, and the answer is that the entire thrust of American policy in Venezuela is to support the Venezuelan people's effort to restore democracy to their country. That's our policy.
I don't think anybody disputes that. The question I had for you is that does the interest of the United States include protecting human rights and include protecting people against genocide.
That is always the position of the United States.
Thank you. I yield back.
All right, you have now seen the entire exchange, and it is just as bad as it looked at the beginning. Let us be very clear about what we just witnessed. That was not a hearing, that was a show trial. First, let us talk about Elliot Abrams. Here is a man with decades of experience in foreign policy. Does he have a controversial past? Yes, he has been involved in high-stakes foreign policy for more than 40 years, and that comes with a territory. He pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor and was later pardoned. Ilhan Omar brings this up not to establish a pattern of untruthfulness, but to poison the well from the start and dismiss anything he might say. This is a classic ad hominem attack. She does not want to debate his ideas, she wants to disqualify him as a person. Notice how every time he attempts to provide context or answer her loaded questions, she cuts him off and moves on. She was not there for dialogue, she was there to deliver a monologue. Now let us talk about Ilhan Omar and the level of disrespect and arrogance on display. She demands simple yes or no answers to complex geopolitical events that took place decades ago. That is not a search for truth, that is a trap designed to force a sound bite that can later be used against someone. The question itself is framed in bad faith and is meant to imply guilt regardless of the response. Elliot Abrams was right to call the question ridiculous, and he pointed out that the achievement he referred to was the establishment and survival of democracy in El Salvador, a fact that was conveniently ignored. This is not an isolated incident, it reflects a broader pattern of behavior from Ilhan Omar that critics argue shows poor judgment. She came to the United States as a refugee, received opportunities through education and public service, and was ultimately elected to the United States Congress, a story often described as the American dream. Yet critics argue she uses her platform to consistently criticize the country that gave her those opportunities. In this hearing, the focus shifts away from policy discussions about Venezuela and instead becomes a personal attack on an American diplomat. This pattern of rhetoric, which critics say sometimes downplays violence and extremism, raises serious concerns for many observers. When you watch this exchange, you are not simply watching a tense committee hearing, you are watching an example of someone treating public office as a stage for activism rather than a responsibility of governance. Elliot Abrams arrived to discuss policy and was met with what many view as a confrontational performance. Supporters argue that the American people, including voters in Minnesota, deserve representation that is serious, professional, and focused on governance, and critics believe Ilhan Omar has repeatedly failed to meet that standard.